turn. Welcome everybody to the Jam. I am Crash.
And I'm Church. And do we really need to take turns, I guess, is the question.
I don't know if we have to
With
take
intros.
turns.
Every other time. It's fair that way, right? We want to be fair.
Yes, we're gentlemanly.
Who gets
We're
to
gentlemanly.
pretend to be the most radio friendly?
We'll be gentlemanly between gentlemen.
We wanted to talk today about a couple of different things. One of the things we wanted to start in was discussing the situation of the border and some of thoughts about that, and then just talking about Biden and his divisiveness a little bit. So, what do you think?
So
Mr.
first of all, today is just a few hours ago, Buckingham Palace announced the death of Queen Elizabeth.
Right. Yeah, I guess
And-
we could lead off with that. That is kind of a big story,
It's
isn't
a
it?
huge story. It's like the story so far almost of the century. I mean, besides 9/11. Yeah, I mean, that's
A little less surprising. I mean, she was in her.
she was 96
90s.
years old. It was
Yeah,
kind of expected.
so-
I think everybody was kind of like, how long is this old bird gonna keep flying? And she did. She kind of surprised everybody. But 70 years as the Queen of England. I mean, that's just I can't even. That's amazing. She has lived
Yeah.
through 14 presidents of the United States, and she's met all but one of them. She didn't meet Lyndon Johnson, but she did meet all of the other presidents.
Yeah. Of course. How much influence does the ruler of England actually have in England anymore? In Great Britain.
Yeah, they've been talking a lot about that today. It's actually built, I guess, into the Constitution of Great Britain that they can't actually speak of things politically. They're required by their Constitution to remain politically neutral.
The monarchy.
The monarchy is, yeah. Well, the monarch. You can't really say the monarchy because
yeah, okay.
Charles.
Yeah.
Charles. He was
Fair enough.
He was pretty divisive about things, and he was he is a kind of a World Economic Forum disciple. He has followed that. He's kind of part of it. He buys into the rhetoric of the World Economic Forum. So it'll be interesting to see him make that change and to see if he really holds to that. But I mean, I think the strength of the monarchy definitely is weakened because she kind of represented that last, there's just that last little bit of purity in the monarchy as we know it. I mean, not like, medieval times or anything like that, but
Yeah, I don't know. We don't want that sort of purity in monarchies in the world anyway.
well, purity in
the
that
tyrant who
it
can
was,
rule and command whatever they want.
No,
sort of thing.
purity as in, she just created so much stability to England. It was and it was really institutional. Very traditional person. She her husband, or not her husband, but Charles. He's was admired in controversy for decades. When he cheated on Diane, when they split up, and I think there was a lot of harsh feelings between.
There seems to be a real fascination with the British royalty that I just have never really understood. Like, I just kind of don't care, particularly about their personal lives. Now, I do care if a new monarch means, a change politically to the world stability and could cause issues, then that would matter to me more. But, I don't care about all the stuff you see in the tabloids, with the monarchy. It's so fascinating to people, and I just don't care. I'm like, whatever, who cares? about that?
All that stuff with Meghan Markle and
Well, that stuff, yeah.
all of the behind the scenes, the stuff that you see. Yeah, you're right. The tabloids, the stuff in Men in Black where they say that's real journalism at the end of the first one, but no, I mean, this is I see people, even in the United States, they go over to Great Britain, they meet the Queen, and they're so fascinated by it, and then they These are American citizens, and they bow or curtsy
Which I don't
to the
understand. Yeah.
Queen. And as an American, I personally, if I ever had the chance to meet uh, now King Charles, boy, I would. I think if they said, hey, it's you're required to bow, I'd look at him and say, well, if that's going to be a requirement and it's going to prevent me
Yeah.
from not meeting him because I'm not going to do that, then I guess I'm
I
not going to
wouldn't
meet
do it.
him.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, I'm an American, and
Yeah. I'd give him a friendly head nod. I'd be
yeah,
like, hey,
I bow to God and God alone.
exactly. Yep. I will bow to our Lord and Savior when he returns. And other than that, I bow to no man because I'm an American. That's just the way we are. We don't bow. That's part of the principle
Yeah.
of what American was founded
And
on.
that's what was so frustrating when Barack Obama bowed to the Prince of Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was a mistake. I'm not sure he meant it as a deference thing as much as a respect thing. So I can be a little forgiving of
But
it. But
even as respect, he's the president of the freaking United States.
yeah, absolutely. I think it was a
So
mistake for
yeah,
sure.
it's not, this
I'm just
isn't.
saying his motivations. I don't think it was a like if Biden did that sort of thing, it would feel more like a deference thing and a
Well,
weakness thing.
he was on his apology tour. He was on his America is bad. We're sorry for every bad thing that we've done. And here
Right.
he is, the leader of the free world, and he's bowing to a foreign power as the most
Yeah,
powerful
it's a
person
bad
in the
thing.
world. Yeah,
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right.
yeah. I mean, even if it's a sign of respect as president of the United States, if you're a citizen and you do that, I guess it's really just up to you. I'm personally not going to do it, but as president of the United States, you are expected to carry yourself as the president of the United States.
Yeah, and I wouldn't, like if I became captive of some evil, country or something, and they, put a gun to my head and said, "You will bow to our leader, or we're going to kill you now." I'd probably bow in that situation. I'm not that pig-headed about. I will bow to no man, sort of thing. It's just as a general rule. I'd be the same as you with like meeting the monarchy or something. I'd be like, well, if I have to bow, then I'm not. I'll pass. I'll pass on meeting him, sort of thing.
Yeah,
Because
yeah. Or if
so
I guess in front of everybody, and they say bow, and I'd be like, no, I'm I'm not going to. I'm an American, and
yeah,
hey, no disrespect to you. And I guess it was actually said today. I was watching some of the stuff on Fox News, and Dana Perino talked about that, and she said that Queen Elizabeth actually didn't even care about any of that. She thought it was just, she went through the motions of it, and that's where I say the stability of the tradition. But she personally,
it's not.
she,
It's not a modern.
yeah,
Yeah, it's not a modern thing to
yeah.
think or to approach royalty that way. And it's
Because Dana Perino traveled with George Bush to Great Britain when he met with Queen Elizabeth, and that was one of the things that she noted was that Queen Elizabeth actually didn't really care. I'm sure if it was a British subject, it would be different.
right. If someone showed her disrespect intentionally or something, it might be offensive or something like that. But it's just parade,
Yeah.
pomp and circumstance.
Personally,
kinda.
I don't care, but to the border situation, a couple of days ago, Ted Cruz gave an invitation to Karine Jean-Pierre, the White House press secretary, that she should go down to the border because she's been not.
She's been saying there's no problem.
She's been
down
saying
there
there's
and
no
that
problem
things aren't
down there.
happening.
Yeah, and then so he said, "Hey, just come on down, and and I will show you that
Who was
people
it
are."
that gave that?
It was Ted
invitation?
Cruz. It was Ted Cruz. And he said, I will show you that they are not just coming across the border by the dozens, but while you are here, we will see hundreds of people crossing the border. And she quipped back to him on Twitter and said, we're not going or not, maybe it wasn't on Twitter, but she at least responded, and she did say, we're not going to take the advice or accept invitations from Republicans. And Ted Cruz, of course, fired back and said, hey, if you come down, I tell you what, you come down to the border, and if you do not see hundreds of people crossing while you are there, I will admit that I am wrong. But if I am right
Right.
and you are wrong, then you need to admit to everybody that you have lied to that you have lied. And I thought that was awesome.
I was since I didn't hear the name at first, I was expecting it to be Peter Ducey, who had, who had asked her.
You mean the only person in the White House press that actually has the
Real
canards to
questions,
actually
yeah.
to ask questions? Yeah, yeah, tough questions.
Yeah, yeah, and it's really funny the one today where he, well, I saw it today. I don't know if it happened today, where he pointed out that she was saying, that anyone who questions an election is a fascist.
Yes,
And then he points out, well,
that
okay,
she
here's a quote
questioned
from
it.
you,
Yeah,
and here's a
in
quote from Biden, and here's a
2016.
quote from, yeah,
Yeah,
and
she did.
it's
She
pretty
in
great.
2016, she did say that that the Republicans had stolen ballots, that they set up mail fraud, and all of these things to.
Yeah, and it's such. I mean, the gaslighting going on by right now is just phenomenal. Like it's phenomenal level of gaslighting coming from the presidency, essentially, but from the whole democratic institution. And
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you're exactly right about the gaslighting. It's so amazing that they fully expect people to believe them because they say it, and
well,
it's
do
like.
they? That's I just yeah, it's amazing. Like what I think is the people that have their heads buried in the sand because they're so far on the left are going to believe it anyway and already believe it.
Because they are the only ones they listen to.
Yeah. But
But it's like, it's not like we don't have this thing called the internet where everything is saved once you put it
well,
out there online.
yeah, you'd think that would make more of a difference than it does. Unfortunately, people don't, we've talked about this before. People don't know what they're talking about and they aren't informed, even though information is so easy to come by and you could know, the facts of the matter without a lot of work. And
Yeah. Well, things are so easy to
I
come
don't know.
by.
And just people's opinions are stunning to me. So there's Facebook. There was a story recently that Zion's Bank here in Utah pulled out of the gay pride parade in Idaho as a, being taking part in that because they were involving minors in it. And so I saw this post
So they
on
did the
Facebook.
correct thing. So they did the correct thing.
Well, my initial response is Zion's Bank. I was like, why are they involved in the gay pride
Right.
event
Right.
anyway?
Mm-hmm.
It's a little weird, but whatever. Okay, they want to show solidarity and support or whatever, and good faith. Okay, fine. But then, yeah, because there's minors involved and they're doing, the drag show with minor type things and stuff. Makes sense, right? They'd pull out and they're like, we don't want to support this stuff. The commentary on this Facebook post, I didn't even look at a lot of it, but it was like, seriously, 50% of the people were calling Zion's Bank terrible names and saying they'd never go to Zion's Bank again and they're going to, boycott them and Zion's Bank is horrible and bigoted and all these things. And it was stunning to me. Like, I was like, how can people
They don't even
think
listen to
these
their own
things?
words. Yeah, they're not even listening to their own words about intolerance and bigotry. How they are actually the ones who are being bigoted.
Right. But just the thinking that goes into, no, children should be exposed to this sexual stuff. It's like,
Yeah.
it's fathomable to me. I don't understand what's happened where it's gone like beyond, like the evil has just come out in droves and just been like, hey, it's cool to be evil now, and now evil's the new cool thing.
Yeah,
So we're all
the
gonna be
moral
evil.
standard is
We're not going
now
to hide it anymore.
Yeah, the moral standard is completely it's bizarro world right now. We're just in this dimension of dementia where people are not I wouldn't say everybody, but it's just this.
No, I would say, yeah.
It's a small number of very vocal people
Well, I don't know that it's as small as we think, but what I do think is that the kind of people who are living in this bizarro world and believe in it are the ones who are active online. And so I think you
Yes.
see,
Yeah.
like it was every other comment. The other comments were all like good for Zions and this needs to happen and we got to stand against this stuff. But it was like every other comment. It was like 50%. And like I said, I didn't look at a lot of comments, but it struck me how many people were supporting this lunacy. And but I don't think that's like if I went to all my neighbors and asked them, if I did a poll in my neighborhood,
Yeah. The
that would not be
majority
the
of them would
case.
say, no, that's wrong.
And that's we saw that with the bill in Florida where you live,
Yes.
where the polls, the overwhelming majority supported.
Largely in the Democrat Party, the people belonging to the Democrat Party, I should say, just citizens.
But yeah,
When they were
it's
polled, the majority of them were like, no, this is wrong.
the amount of people who don't think this is bizarro world and think this is good and normal and wholesome is still shocking. It's just shocking to me.
It is. It shouldn't even be there at all. But it's surprising that such a minority is controlling the narrative. And you
Yeah,
have
for
such a
sure.
and but I think that if you didn't have a completely complicit media, that the support would be there. We have a media that is and the entertainment industry, both the entertainment industry and the media is so full of that rotten uh, lifestyle, that rotten morality that they I think Hollywood and the entertainment industry has been like this for decades, but it's only until recently where they've just been like,
Well,
okay, now there's no point in hiding it anymore. This is what we believe. This is how we feel.
well, and conversely, then you have the Me Too movement sort of situation, and this unfairness to women and unfairness to men get paid more than women sort of stuff, and you get this coming out, and all of the problems with that are in Hollywood. Like Hollywood is where they have these evil men that are not paying women and that are sleeping around, making women sleep around to get parts and raping and
Yes.
abusing and all this sort of stuff. And they live in this corrupt, horrible world. And then Hollywood comes out and pretends like that's the whole world and everywhere in the world, that's the way women are treated. And then people just buy into that.
Yes.
But that's not true. Women aren't treated that way in most business
No.
situations. If you treated women that way, you'd get in serious trouble. That's not like I've worked in a lot of big companies and they are very, very fair, and women make just as much as men, and women are bosses just as much as men. I mean, there are granted fewer women who move into the field that I'm in because I'm a computer programmer, and women generally don't pursue that career as much. And so you do see less women percentage wise than men, but the women are not treated that way. And if they were, if you ever made some sort of sexist comment to a woman, you'd get in trouble so fast. Like that stuff is not
Yes,
allowed.
I agree. And I work in an industry that is predominantly dominated by men, very
Mm.
much so. And it's just because that's the way manufacturing
Because
is.
men rule.
Men, but yet the company that I work
Personally, I
for,
like women. I just want to make that clear.
well,
I
the
like
company that I
women.
work for, the president is a woman.
Right?
The vice president is a woman. We have a predominantly staffed female upper management and middle management. We do have when it comes to the production side, there are a lot of men that are there, but we also have some women who are part of that. And so this idea that, like you said, that women aren't getting a fair shake. Look, we've got a female vice president. We have our press secretaries have predominantly been female. If you look back over time, the White House press secretaries have predominantly been female, and these are press secretaries who are out in the limelight. They are out in front of the press every single day, and we have so many examples of strong women in our history. Yet it only seems to the left that we are supposed to be concerned about now, because that's the narrative that they want to push, that right now it is so bad and we're just now breaking the shackles of male dominance in society, when it's absolutely, completely false.
Well, it depends on what you mean by dominance. In that, there's definitely still, like, if you look at how many men are in Congress compared to how many women, if you look at how many men are in business leadership positions compared to women and stuff, there's definitely a dominance there. But the problem is that dominance doesn't stem from oppression through like systematic oppression. It stems from the fact that women just naturally have different interests. And so as a broad spectrum, women don't pursue business as much as men do. Women don't pursue government as much as men do. That certain things in certain industries, women are going to dominate because that's more their interest, and men are not going to pursue those interests as well. And that's just the natural way that men and women. You could make the argument, I don't know how much, there might be a percentage of truth to it, but you can make the argument that culturally that's put upon women, that women should be nurses, sort of thing. And so they grow up thinking they should be nurses, and it's not a natural interest. I don't know if that's true or not, right? But either way, whether that's the case or not, it's still women that are choosing the fields that they choose, and therefore there is a dominance by men for sure, but it's not because of some sort of oppression where men are out there, enslaving women and keeping them down and, not allowing them through the door at some level.
I think the appointment of Sandra Day O'Connor to the U.S. Supreme Court should have really, that was so monumental in especially government, in American government, because it showed that a woman really can just achieve the highest heights in U.S. government. And when it comes to that particular position, you're talking about one of the most powerful people in the United States, in that position, sitting on that court of nine.
Well, within a few months, we could have a female president, like any day now.
We could have a president, female. Well, some argue that we already do, but.
Right.
Because according to President Biden, she is the president. So
second and third in line are both female.
That's right. Yeah, that's exactly right.
Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry. What is a woman? Maybe they're not women.
I'm not really sure.
Is Pelosi a woman?
I think they push this narrative so much that it's almost like they have a solution in search of a problem. So you have parts of society where women who aren't being oppressed go out and say that they are being oppressed. It's the same thing with race.
Yeah, did you see that with Jennifer? I'm spacing her last. See, I'm having another one of those moments. You know that one girl that's in that one show that did that one thing that one time?
You talking about J-Lo?
The Hunger Games star.
Oh, yeah, I know who you're talking about. So what did she say?
I got to look up her name first before I... These moments, I gotta get past them, right? I gotta make my brain work in these moments.
You're 51 years old, so...
It's not that. I've had this my whole life. Jennifer Lawrence. Yeah, the Lawrence part.
What did she say?
She said something about Tucker Carlson and how he was like haunting her dreams or something like that. And she was oppressed and had this. I didn't actually read the.
That's like AOC saying that all the male Republicans just secretly want to date her. What in the world, man? I mean, what? Okay, first of all, does she watch Tucker Carlson? Is that why she's so haunted? Is because she's so threatened by the truth? Is that really what's going on?
Like I said, yeah, I didn't read it. I just saw the headline.
If she's not watching Tucker Carlson, why in the world would she even care what Tucker Carlson has to say? Like, I couldn't care.
Jennifer Lawrence admits to having nightmares about Tucker Carlson is the headline that I saw.
Now, that means that Tucker Carlson secretly wants to be with her, I guess. Right?
Yeah.
Isn't that what that means? So, I mean, this goes a little bit into what we're trying to talk about with Joe Biden. We're going to talk about the border as well, but Joe Biden is he campaigned on being a uniter, that he was going to unify this country. And last week he had his speech, and he's been getting really bad about this lately, where he is really demonizing Republicans, particularly what he calls MAGA Republicans. But then he gives that little caveat, well, but it's not all Republicans, it's just those who voted for Trump. Well, 75 million
We didn't
people.
say voted for, but yeah.
Well, 75 million people voted for Trump.
The thing is, it's more gaslighting.
75 million people voted for Trump in 2020. So, but that included Democrats, that included independents, that included people who hadn't voted Republican their entire lives, but they were not going to vote for Joe Biden, and they voted for Donald Trump. But I mean, this thing that Joe Biden is saying, he's telling them that that Republicans are the biggest threat to society. Did you see the tweet from oh geez, what's her name? She's the red-haired comedian. She's the one that held Donald Trump's
the head.
Yeah, the fake head of Donald Trump.
See, now you're having one of those moments.
Yeah, I am. I don't care. But she tweets out,
because who cares what her name is, right?
If you don't want civil war, vote Democrat. If you want civil war, vote Republican.
Kathy Griffin, by the way.
Kathy Griffin. So she's basically threatening that if you vote Republican, they're bringing a civil war. Yeah. And talk about gaslighting. This is so divisive, and they are the.
Well, I don't know if that's so much gaslighting, because it could, like that. They may take, we don't know. I mean, they're clearly like. Biden is obviously, well, I don't know if it's Biden specifically, I guess is why I'm stumbling over my words, but the administration, the leftist, presidency in power and Democrats, I think they want the Trump Republicans to become violent.
Yes, they do. That's why they love January 6th. They love January 6th. They don't hate January 6th.
Because it gives them more opportunity to take power.
Yeah, look, they don't hate January 6th. They don't hate the people. Well, they do hate the people that were part of January 6th, but they don't hate January 6th. It was not a threat to our republic. They did not commit insurrection. They were not there under seditious purposes. They were there to protest an election that many people, myself included, believe there were many problems in that election, many questions.
They had questions, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of questions, but they were there protesting. And let's not forget that in 2016, there were riots in Washington, D.C. from the Democrats.
Yeah.
On Inauguration Day, in January 20th, 2017. And they ignore all of that. And the lies that have been spewed, especially about the number of people who were killed. There was one person killed as a result of that protest. Just one. And that was a protester. And she was unarmed. She's like 5'1". She was not a threat in any way whatsoever. And she was shot and killed, murdered, in my opinion, because she was a Trump supporter. And then you have the later deaths. We had 3 suicides. We had one of the police officers had strokes, and he died from strokes a few days later. But they blame all of those deaths on the January 6th protesters.
Yeah, and it goes back to what we were talking about earlier with the press secretary, which now I'm spacing her name. What was her name again?
Karine Jean-Pierre.
Yeah, Karine Jean-Pierre. Thank you. Saying and coming from the presidency, coming from Biden, that anyone who questions the election is a fascist sort of idea when they're questioning, they question previous elections. It's the same thing with January 6th. Like, they're saying this was an insurrection and there wasn't even violence other than a little bit here and there because people, go crazy and any sort of thing. But as far as like a massive riot, it was mostly like the cops opened the gates and just let people come in. They paraded around for a little bit and acted a little bit foolish. But then there were actual riots going on when in 2016.
Incited riots on January 6th. These were incited by
Yeah,
people who
incited.
are on the inside. I mean, there were people
Yeah,
that were
presumably,
really
yeah.
involved. There's video footage of these people being involved, inciting the people to rise up and protest and break down the barriers and all of that. But where are they? Why don't we hear about them? Why isn't the White House press secretary addressing that? Why isn't the FBI addressing that? What about the FBI informers? What about the FBI infiltrators, the people who infiltrated these groups to try to incite this violence? Where are they? And all we hear about are the grandmothers, the grandfathers, the people who happen to be in Washington, D.C. They're the ones that are being put into arrest. They're the ones being put in prison as political prisoners without trial,
Right.
without many of them just in solitary confinement for long
Well,
periods of time.
it puts this huge cloud, this mist of darkness, as it were, over what's the truth. And it's really hard to assess what's the truth because on the one side of things, you have that kind of stuff going on. You have clear censorship. You have social media clamping down. The fact that someone can't even say that they think the legitimate wasn't, or excuse me, that the election wasn't legitimate. Like if you proclaim that you believe the election wasn't legitimate on social media,
Your post will be taken down. Yeah.
you get kicked off of it or banned or whatever.
Misinformation.
And so the censorship and the stuff that happened and then the media doesn't cover. They're not covering the things that are actually happening that are important and monumentous, and you hear about these terrible things, like the border is a good example, and the media just ignores it and pretends it's not happening, and then they're covering stuff that Trump and how evil Trump is or whatever still.
Yeah, these protests are mostly peaceful as the building is burning behind them.
Right. Yeah. But then on the other side of things, then you do have, and I think it's legitimate that there is the internet and the ability to pass information so easily does indeed create a problem with misinformation from both sides. And so there is a lot of garbage that comes from the right as well. And you get being able to filter out that information becomes, I think it's a legitimate issue and worth discussing. The problem is, of course, is that the Democrats and the left, their approach to it is to simply say, well, it needs to be censored and we need to be the arbiters and control what information, that's a failing recipe because information is biased. The presentation of information is biased. And so I've heard before that the suggested, if you have a problem with misinformation, the solution is more information. The solution is to let more information out and more information out. And that's exactly about the way I feel about like the election is because there was certainly some misinformation about the election. There was certainly some of the theories out there are garbage and some of the proposals ended up being wrong about people's claims about how and why the election was stolen.
Yeah, if you are so confident that the election was not fraudulent, then give us all of the information. If you are that confident,
let everybody make their case. Let the information flow. Let people prove it wrong. Put out the information and have the debate and convince people. Shutting people up is, a sure way to just, once again, goes back to what we're talking about with the divisiveness. And, I was going to say on that, by the way, that Biden's, I have a fly attacking my face here. Sorry. Biden's comment about he was going to unite us, he meant it. I don't think he was lying, right? He didn't mean I don't want to unite us. It's just he didn't mean what it sounded like he meant, because what he meant is we're going to force everybody to think the way we think.
Yeah, well,
and that's the way that they plan to unite us.
We're going to unite under the same banner is what he's trying to say. We're under the same ideology is really what he's trying to say. Conversion. We're going to convert everybody. You said something a few minutes ago about.
I don't think they think they're going to convert. I think they're going to force.
Well.
So anyway, go ahead.
It's the Islamic version of convert or be beheaded. So
right. Okay.
So you have you said something a few minutes ago about fascism and how it's really how they say that Republicans are fascistic and what they're trying to do, and it's interesting. They put all this blame on Republicans. The last I checked, the Republicans aren't in power. They do not have control of Congress. They do not have control of the executive branch. They really don't have control of the judicial branch. They have a bare majority on the Supreme Court, but this is not. You can't say that Justice Roberts is a sound conservative, because he's not. And by and large, I would even say that one or two of the Trump appointees are not sound conservatives. Yes, they are Republican. They have
well,
largely
not all the Republicans are sound conservatives.
No, exactly.
For sure.
But I mean, they're not Justice. They're not all Justice Thomases on the Republican side of the Supreme Court. So it's so interesting, though, that they talk about that. They try to put all this blame on Republicans for being fascistic, yet we have no power. The Republicans don't, and yet everything that's being done fascistically is being done by the Democratic Party.
Yeah,
get vaccinated or lose your job.
And they claim the fascism based on rhetoric that they claim is fascistic rhetoric, even though it's not necessarily. I mean, it's debatable whether even the most egregious things that Trump said were actually fascistic. But it's just the rhetoric. There's been no fascistic action. Trump, when he had the opportunity to send troops into various cities to deal with issues, he refused. He declined. He didn't act on that. The Republicans and the conservatives have not made any active. You can make the argument of whether the rhetoric is fascistic or not, but to claim that something is fascistic without any fascistic action is, once again, gaslighting.
And yet it was Nancy Pelosi.
Particularly when you're the one doing all the fascistic actual action.
Yes, Nancy Pelosi
the left is the one doing actual action.
Nancy Pelosi turning the Capitol Police into now a multi-state secret police. The FBI being used by this administration.
The IRS increase.
The IRS increase
raiding Trump's home, as we talked about.
Arming the Department of Education. Mm-hmm. Why and arming the EPA? Why is the EPA getting ammunition and arms? And so all of these things are being done by the Democrats, and they are.
Well, and the censorship is one of the most egregious, I think, of that. There's the censorship on social media, which is, as we've learned out recently, influenced by the government. But even if it wasn't influenced by the government, it's still fascistic. To silence people, to shut people up that you disagree with.
Yeah, it really wasn't just influenced by the government. It was coordinated by the government. The government asked Mark Zuckerberg to do it, and Mark Zuckerberg, they asked him to jump, and he pretty much said, okay, how high? I mean, they led it. They did lead the raid on Mar-a-Lago. Look, there were so many things that Joe Biden said in this last thing, his speech last week. I want to play one of those things. So here, I'm gonna play this. This got some commentary after as well.
MAGA Republicans have made their choice. They embrace anger. They thrive on chaos. They live not in the light of truth, but in the shadow of lies.
I just have to remind you, these people believe men can give birth. These people literally believe men can get pregnant. All right? And they are saying that you and I live in the shadow of lies, chaos. Again, every single city run by Democrats is chaos. Democrats wage moral chaos and physical chaos through their policies. They are literally, part of their platform is murder of babies. Whether it's abortion or murder committed by those who should be in prison but aren't because of policies that are put forth in the name of so-called equity.
That was Allie Beth Stuckey from The Blaze. And it's so... Go ahead. I'm sorry, real quick. It's so amazing to me that they talk about these things. They talk about how violent the Republicans are, yet there's no instance of violence among Republicans except January 6th. You have the entire summer.
Well, there's a few other instances, but they're rare. Yeah,
They are
they're
so
rare. You know, you get
rare.
the Proud Boys sort of, you know, getting in brawls or whatever sort of things, but it's not the
But
same.
was
yeah,
it the Proud Boys, or was it the FBI infiltrating the Proud Boys and
Well,
creating
who
that?
knows? Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So I mean, there are so many instances.
No, I have no doubt. I have no doubt that there are those on the right, and particularly the far right. You know, if you include the far right, which I don't think are actually right at all, but if you include that, then there's definitely some violence there. But it's so much less, and it's few and far between. They still have this idea of, you know, these armed militias creating convents or compounds rather, you know, and declaring themselves their own government, and
In
that's
Idaho,
their idea of what
in
everybody.
Idaho.
Yeah, that's what
Yeah.
their idea of everybody on the right
the
is.
Timothy McVeigh kind of people.
That we're all there. You know, you're not my government. I'm the government of myself. You know, sort of thing. With
Yes, and that's how they're depicted in films as well.
Yeah.
They will typically have some sort of a bra on their or drawl in their speech, and they'll wear camo, you know, hunting camo. They'll have hunting guns in the back of
Yep.
their pickup truck,
and they have plumber's crack showing
Yep,
when they bend
yep.
over.
Stereotype truckers' hats and all of that. But
Yeah.
yet it's so amazing that you have these institutions, especially the educational institutions, where there's so much violence on the educational campuses, the universities across the country, and you have so many things that are so objectively immoral. I mean, just horribly immoral, happening all across the country. The lack of speech, allowed speech on college campuses, where it used to be the bastion of the expression of free speech, and now it's not. And so the rhetoric is so bad, and it's total projection. They are the ones that are actually doing it.
Well, that's what I was gonna say about Biden saying that Republicans live in how did he phrase it? The shadow of
The bastion.
lies.
Oh, the shadow of lies. Yes.
Yeah, the shadow of lies. So just 'cause
Ally Beth, yeah.
I had to look it up. I've had to look it up before. You know, you hear people talk about gaslighting, and it's you kind of get a sense of it contextually, but specifically, just in case anyone listening doesn't know and needs to look it up too. Gaslighting is when you make people question their own reality. So you're saying things that are just blatantly false in a way to make people think that that it might be true. And so it's a perfect example. That is a perfect example of him saying, and then her response was hilarious. It's like, you're the people saying men
can have
get
babies.
pregnant, and you're saying we live in the shadow of lies.
Yes.
And yeah, that's kind of exactly, you say the same thing with the, follow the science garbage, like they're talking about the science as if whatever Fauci says is the science, and that's not what science is, or, what following the science would mean in reality is to question. Science is about questioning and questioning
but
and
to
questioning.
them, the science is settled. But then
yep.
the science is only settled until the science has changed, and that's another
Right.
one of their sayings that they use quite a lot the last couple of years. Is, well, the science has changed. It's
appeal to authority is the problem. Is that they have the scientists that are the renowned scientists who say something, then that's what the science is, and so if they've and
when there's no
instead of
actual
saying,
proof.
well, okay, there is some legitimacy to putting a little bit of trust. We talked about that before, how like you can't go verify it, you can't go become a world-renowned scientist on every single subject and know all the information for yourself. There's a level where you have to put your trust in the institutions a little bit and stuff. But when the institutions are fighting against each other, and you have some scientists saying one thing and another scientist saying another thing, then we're in a different game.
So I think, so that touches on something really interesting. But again, we all have something wonderful at our fingertips, and that is the internet.
Mm-hmm.
And
which
so
goes back to that, how easy it is.
We do have the ability, though, to look at information. And if you can't find the information on the internet because of censorship, go to your library. There are medical journals to research. There are all kinds of places that you can go and actually do it. If you
Why
are
on earth
sincere.
would you go to your library?
If
you
you
just
are
said
sincere,
we have the internet.
Yeah. But it's censored.
Why would anybody go
Because
to a
the
library?
is, I don't even think people know what indexing is at the library. What the heck is indexing?
What,
And-
Dewey Decimal? You kidding me?
What are you talking about?
What's that?
I don't even think they know what index cards at the library. What are those? They go to the kiosk, the little computer kiosk, and look something up.
Yeah.
But there are,
Which is great.
There
It's
are,
great. I mean,
yeah.
getting
This is-
information is so easy.
This is the way we used to be able to do things, and yet we've got it all at our fingertips now in our phones. And people are so lazy because they would rather listen to the people that make them feel good, who agree with them, than to question things. And it's only those people who actually sit back and think to themselves, something doesn't feel right here.
Okay, this is a great segue into the border, because I wanted to ask you about this, because one of the things that people want to make decisions and think and have their positions based on the way they feel about it, like their emotions guide them. And there's a level where you kind of, the famous, Ben Shapiro, facts don't care about your feelings approach to things. But that is an argument. I mean, it's a true thing. It's a factual thing. But as an argument for someone who feels compassion and feels concern for a situation and doesn't want that situation to be the way it is because they feel it, that's a hard thing to get past. But you have to get past it in order to actually talk through the facts and talk through the logic and stuff. So when we talk about the border, one of the thoughts I had is that, so Elon Musk the other day made a comment that those who that one of the things that Republicans need to do better is be more compassionate about the border. And I couldn't help but think to myself in response to that. Did you hear that?
No.
That comment?
No.
He said some other things too, but that was one of the things he said.
I know how I feel about it.
You want to share real quickly, and then I'll go on? How does that strike you? I'm curious.
I think he's full of crap. And it's what bothers me so much. It's what bothers me so much about this idea that if you are for legal immigration, that you are not compassionate.
So you're
Give me a
like-minded
break.
to exactly what I was thinking, and that's exactly what I was going to say. Is it's
Yep.
like there's a problem with that's saying that when you worry about having an open border that allows anyone to come through without any sort of control or restrictions or safety kind of concerns, that means you're not compassionate, that you don't care. And
It's a falsehood.
it leads,
That's a
it
falsehood.
makes it so that we can't even have the discussions about, like,
Yeah.
if there's a problem with legal immigration being too restrictive, then that's a discussion worth having. That's a discussion where you can stand back and you say, okay, we're too restrictive. And so there are people who are good people who need and want to be in the country who we're not letting in because of how restrictive we are. So how can we change that? How can we be less restrictive? Can we open up and let more people in? Can we, that whatever the discussion is, however that leads, that's a discussion worth having. But we can't even get to that discussion because it just becomes name calling, and it becomes, you don't care because I feel like these poor people need to come into the country, and you're saying that we need to not let them in. So it's you're evil and you're a Nazi, sort
Well,
of
and
thing.
see, that part of the argument is, if you are compassionate, if you want people to actually come here, you should allow them to come here any way that they want. And that is so bad, especially when they are such proponents about open borders and an open immigration policy where anybody can come in. We're just going to hand over whatever they want and need. We're giving them free education. We're giving them free health care. We're giving them access to all of these things. And yet, we are not giving our own citizens the same leeway when it comes to things. Our own citizenry is required to do more than the immigrant who comes here illegally.
Right.
We are
Well, then-
required to obey all of the laws in this country. If you're not a Democrat, because apparently you can commit crime as a Democrat, you're going to get put out on jail and it's no big deal. But if you're a Republican, forget about it, right?
Well, only if you're in a Democrat-run city.
But you're not allowed. We don't have blind justice in this country. And
Well, and the other way to think about it would be like with education. I had this thought as you were talking, is that It's like saying that I feel compassion for these people that can't get a job because they don't have a degree. Therefore, they should be able to say they have a degree even though they don't. They should be able to lie about that and go get a job because that's what my compassion tells me.
That's a good
and
analogy.
It's the same sort of logic. It's like saying, you know, when you say people that can come across the border illegally, they should be able to come across anyway because I feel compassion for them is about the same sort of logic. Like having a structure where you have to follow a path. You could talk about that path. You could talk about whether it's too difficult to get a degree. You could talk about whether or not jobs should actually require degrees in a lot of cases where they do and they probably shouldn't. You can have those sorts of discussions, but when you just go straight to, oh, well, people should be able to lie about having degrees then, that's fairly typical leftist thinking from my experience, is they say, oh, we feel bad for this, therefore throw all the rules out of the window.
Well, this is what got me so worked up the other night. So you're talking about we're discussing how the Democrats are trying to change this narrative to where it shuts if the Democrats are good at anything, it's shutting down opposition in debate, because they will demonize so badly the other side that the other side feels like that if they say anything at all, then everybody's going to believe that they're a bad person. So the rhetoric about this open border policy is so two-faced, because at the same time they praise and they talk about how much the border in Ukraine needs to be secure. Right. So while Ukraine apparently deserves to have a very secure border because they need to protect the sovereignty of their country, we are not allowed to have a secure border in our country and protect our own sovereignty, when yet we have terrorists coming across our border, we have drug dealers coming across our border, we have human traffickers coming across our border, and the number one killer of men ages 18 to 45 is from fentanyl. And that's all coming across the southern border, being brought in by the drug cartels and created in China. Now, the other night, in China. So the other night, Trump was giving a speech, and you and I talked about this previously, and you had to correct me because I was watching part of the speech, and Trump was talking about how in China they have a drug policy that if you are a drug dealer, or if you are involved in drugs, you will be caught and you will be immediately tried. They have actually a fast and speedy trial, like our Constitution is supposed to ensure that we have. But they have a fast and speedy trial, and so I would guess that.
Wait, did you just praise China?
No. Trump was. So this is what Trump was talking about.
No, you said they have a fast and speedy China like we're supposed to. That sounded
okay.
Like praise
I added
for China.
that part, the fast and speedy that we're supposed to. But that's Trump said they have a fast and speedy trial system, and so I added the like we're supposed to. So anyway, he said that this is what President Xi had told him, and that in their country, when a person is caught, they are tried, and if they are found guilty. And there was kind of a joke that he made about that. He kind of looked up and he's like, if you're found guilty, and everybody knew that if you're tried in China by, and prosecuted against by the country, you're going to be found guilty, pretty much. You're killed. You're executed.
Yeah.
And you have a speedy execution. So it's almost like I don't know if you ever saw. I don't know if you ever.
And then I don't know if you listened to the whole thing, but then Trump called for that in our country. He
okay,
said
so hold on a second. I got to finish what I was going to say, because
sorry.
when I was watching this, because Dr. Oz was there, right? He's there to help campaign for Mehmet Oz, and so when he's talking about this, I waited for him to say, but because of China, we have this drug that's being brought in over our southern border. And I didn't see it. Like, for minutes, I watched it and I was screaming and yelling at the TV, like, I cannot believe that you did not point out that China is doing this. Now, like all Trump's...
But he did. Yeah.
Well, but see, like all Trump's speeches, they're like, 80 minutes long. So I'm not going to sit there and watch this thing for 80
And I did,
minutes.
because I knew you wanted to talk about it, so I listened to the whole thing.
Well, I wasn't going
and sure
to,
enough,
yeah.
he said, "Yep," and they're sending their fentanyl over the border to us and
Okay,
killing
so
our kids.
when you
And he
said that, I was like, okay, I'm
So-
really glad that he did that, because I was infuriated. I was so ticked off at him for not mentioning it when he was talking about their drug policy, because it would have been a perfect time to actually talk about their drug policy by pointing out their hypocrisy, because they are sending all of the drugs to the United States, because they are our enemy. They want to destroy us, and they're doing a really good job of it. But we have all of these problems that are coming over our southern border, and it's so infuriating to me to see the Democrats trying to paint Republicans as being so demonizing of immigration, when we have all of these problems that are pouring into our country because of their policies of open borders. Am I passionate about this? Yes.
And I feel the same way. I'm maybe not as passionate in my the way I express it as you, but I don't know. How did you feel about Trump calling for the death penalty for drug dealers in our country? Because that was a little interesting. Like, I wasn't sure how to take that, as far like it's one of those things it's pretty extreme thing to say, and but you know,
so you've got,
as pointed out, it's one of the greatest causes of death, right?
Well, if you've got it, well, it's the number one cause for men ages 18 to 45. The number one cause of death of men in that age group is fentanyl, and fentanyl is such a potent drug that even enough grains to cover, I think it's about the size of a quarter of the face of a penny. So if you were to take a quarter of that size and you had a few grains of fentanyl, that is enough to grow an adult human. Or, sorry, not to grow, to kill an adult human.
I was going to say, wait, did we
Jack
did
and
we
the
switch
Beanstalk. We have Jack
subjects?
and the Beanstalk. We have magic beans. We have magic dust. Fentanyl. No, it is enough to kill an adult human. So that is an extremely potent thing. And one of the things that they say, a lot of cases where people are killed, children, adults, is these are... there are drugs that hospitals are giving that have fentanyl in them. People might touch a package that have fentanyl on it. They might go and then eat something, and just from what they had on their hands will contaminate the food, and they'll eat that, they'll ingest it, and then they'll die from fentanyl. And that's one of the reasons why it is. These aren't all just people who are doing drugs, but we do have many drugs that are pouring in from the drug cartels across the southern border that do have traces of fentanyl in them, and they're purposefully put in there so that they can harm us. And they're not. China's not doing it to get us hooked on drugs. That's the purpose of a drug cartel in Mexico. China is doing it because they hate us.
Well, it amounts to the same thing, but it's for different reasons. Yeah.
Well, they hate us. They want to get rid of us.
But the drug thing, it's a deeper conversation. Maybe we should discuss that at some point. I'm not sure what I think of the different approaches to how to deal with the drug problem we have. But
finish the wall. Finish the wall.
What I was going to say.
We're supposed to have a big, beautiful wall, but the big, beautiful door.
Even if you went with the extremist view of saying legalize all drugs and then treat them instead of making it illegal and driving it underground, let's just say that for the sake of argument that everybody agreed on that when we went with that direction, still controlling the border and controlling what's coming into our country and controlling that sort of thing.
Well, the problem is a lot more than just drugs. You've got the horrible. Absolutely horrible human trafficking that's going on. And really, it's amazing because President Trump was one of the only ones in government, the only one actually that I'm aware of in government, except maybe a couple of representatives and members of Senate, especially Ted Cruz, because he's in a border state. We're addressing that issue. And it is such a big problem. It's such a big problem that it's one of the major problems that the border states do face. What is it? Arizona, the kidnapping rate and the drug trafficking, or not drug trafficking, but human trafficking that happens in Arizona is just, it's unbelievably high. And if our media covered these things, that's the thing, is if they covered these things, there would be so much more awareness of the problem and so many more people screaming for the government to do something. But the media is just completely complicit in covering it up, not reporting it.
Well, I think we're pretty much out of time here. I do think it's worth, talking about the media as a whole different broad subject, right? And like what can be done about that, and why is the media the way it is and stuff? Why won't they cover certain things? Such an interesting topic. But I think we're pretty much agreed on the border. And, I just want to reiterate that, this whole compassion thing, it's like, I feel an immense amount of compassion for people who live in these countries and want to come and make their way in America. The American dream, yeah, the American dream means something to me, and the ability to come and make your way in America. I want these people to have that opportunity. I legitimately do, and I would presume that for the most part, I'm sure there's greedy Republicans that are selfish or whatever at some level somewhere. They're like, yeah, keep the foreigners out. And certainly there are going to be people who are bigoted and actually racist about it and stuff. But as a general rule, I would say that most people who are on the conservative side of things and want to control that border, they actually do want legal immigration. We want to bring new people into our country.
We want to have control because we are a sovereign country.
Yeah, it's just like the voting issue. Yeah. It's like saying that we want voter ID means we're trying to suppress voting or something. Yeah. It's just, once again, more gaslighting. And it's just like, no, we want people to vote. We very much want people to vote, but we want them to vote for themselves, not for dead people and not for not for 10 other people. And we want
legitimate voting. We want it to be honest. We want it to be fair. We want it to
honest
be
and fair. Yeah.
We want it to be, that's really all it is. We want honesty and fairness. That's what we want. And you know what? If that's the case, and if Joe Biden legitimately won the 2020 election because it was honest and fair, then fantastic.
Absolutely.
He's our president. It is what it is. I don't like that outcome, but he's the president. And we wouldn't have these big questions if we believed that it was honest and fair.
If we were allowed to ask the questions.
Yes.
Like, we're not allowed to ask the questions. And so...
And we're not allowed to get the answers. We don't have big questions. We're not allowed to get the answers.
We have big questions because we can't ask them. And so,
yeah. Well, that's opens up a whole bunch of other questions. So,
right. Anyway, thanks for joining us today on this episode of The Jam. See, I got one in at the end there. The Jam.
You did. The Jam.
So please like, subscribe, and share with your friends if you feel so inclined, unless you hate us. Comment, and we love you.
Don't be a hater.
Except you.
Be a congratulator.
I don't love you. Everyone else I love, but that guy right there.
Give yourselves a hug. Hug the ones you love.
Later, Gator.
Bye, everybody. Go Gators.